full service wealth management all in one place. Learn more at Schwab.com.
From Marketplace, I'm Sabrina Short in for Kimberly Adams. The U.S. and Iran traded new attacks since the president said the ceasefire was over. Oil prices surged yesterday, but have come off those highs ever so slightly. Shipping through the Strait of Hormuz is just about completely frozen. Jane Foley is here to talk about it. She's head of foreign exchange strategy at Rabobank in London. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So generally speaking, what is the market's take on this eruption of hostilities?
Well, of course, we are back to watching that oil price. We did see it decline this morning after yesterday's increases. So that means that this morning, well, some of that sentiment, some of those fears yesterday have eased back. And that means that the market has taken the additional conflict that we've seen from both sides yesterday in the Middle East as really a maneuver to get power at the negotiating table. It seems that Trump really does want to assert U.S. influence, give a very strong signal to Iran that they cannot dominate the Strait of Hormuz.
Treasury yields, one reason we are always talking about them is they reflect what investors think the future is going to be like, specifically inflation and where interest rates in the economy are going to be. Yields on the 10-year have gone up. So what does that mean?
Well, yesterday's move, yes, that was in response to that move higher that we had yesterday in oil prices. Clearly, prices go up while inflation goes up, and we did see Treasury yields on the 10-year up to levels we haven't seen for quite a few months now. They should be dropping back today if the market continues to think that yesterday's escalation wasn't the reignition of the war, but it wasn't instead just part of the negotiation process. But we have seen Japanese yields go even higher. They've been at multi-year highs. So this is not an inflation story just for the US, but certainly something that we've seen on a much broader scale.
We got the notes from the Federal Reserve's last meeting in June, and this is kind of the inside scoop on what they're thinking. Right now, the Fed has to decide whether the bigger problem is the job market, in which case it would lower rates, or if the bigger problem is inflation, in which case it would raise rates. Where does the Fed land on that?
Well, in June, it was definitely landing on the side of inflation. Inflation quite clearly was the bigger problem, and that's one of the key messages from the minutes of that June meeting. But of course, since June, things have changed. The oil price is a lot lower than it was at the time of that meeting, and we have had one set of key monthly US jobs data, and that data was weaker than expected. And this all suggests that, yes, the Fed was very hawkish in June. Hawkish means a central bank that is willing and wanting to put interest rates up. But coming up with the next meeting, does it need to be quite so hawkish? And that's the question that the market will be trying to answer this month.
Jane Foley, head of foreign exchange strategy at Rabobank in London. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, let's do the numbers. The price of a barrel of Brent crude is $79. It was up 72 on Tuesday. The Dow futures are down 8 points. That's 2.6%. S&P futures are up 0.5%. Nasdaq futures up 0.7%. The yield on the 10-year Treasury is up 5.9%. And congratulations to consumers. We apparently put a little less on our credit cards back in May. The Federal Reserve is reporting revolving credit declined by about $5 billion that month. This was after massive increases in that kind of debt in March and April. But it means people took the opportunity to pay some of that debt down. So, good job, everybody.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Odoo.com, providing business management software with integrated programs for accounting, manufacturing, and operations. Odoo, all your business on one platform.
Meghan Trainor, the Pussycat Dolls, Post Malone, what these musical acts all have in common is that they canceled their summer tours. This happens. Fans have personal reasons for canceling, but the economics are not helping. Going on tour is getting more expensive, and fans are being careful about where they spend. So we called up Gabe Reasoner, lead singer of Minneapolis hardcore band Careful Gaze, to hear about what it's like for a band out there right now. Gabe, welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Can you give us a sense of what goes into planning an independent tour?
A lot of what I have done in my past is the booking side, making sure there's bands for it, the routing side, like planning out what cities you're going to and having a backup plan, figuring out lodging, figuring out merchandise, figuring pretty much every step of the show out if there's not like a proper promoter attached to it.
How much of that do you have to pay for up front?
I mean, you have to pay for your merch up front. You have to, if you have hopefully you have a vehicle that can handle it. And so that would be something that you would have invested in. A lot of bands rent like a U-Haul trailer when they go, if they don't have their own trailer. So you have to pay for that up front as well. The shows themselves, most places are not, especially like a punk show or a bar or something, they're not going to require you to put like a deposit down to play there. If they do, I would probably not do it. If you have like a booking agent though too, that you're having book the tour for you or help you, that can also be an upfront cost as well, where you might have to pay them. Sometimes you'll pay them up front, sometimes you'll just pay them a percentage of what the show makes after it happens.
That sounds so weird to me that you would have to pay the venue to play there. Isn't it supposed to be the other way around? Like, don't they?
Yeah, like I said, most of the time you don't, but there are some places that they have maybe like a lot of overhead with their staff or something, so they don't want to just have any band come in and then be, out the cost of having the show. So and sometimes if you're reaching out to a place, they'll respond and say, okay, well, it costs like $300 to have the show here. We don't usually do those places because we can't really like afford to just be like throwing that down,
Gabe Reasoner, his vocalist, band Careful Days. Thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
In New York, I'm Sabri Benishore with Marketplace. From 8 p.m. America.
Houston, this is the moment to act. Just $650,000 remain to reach Houston Public Media's Resiliency Fund goal. That's 15% left. Help keep Houston informed. Give now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
1 minute to 7 here on News 88.7. Good morning. The Grand Parkway shut down 99 headed north past West Road. Accident involving few vehicles. One of them overturned, caught fire. Records hooking up now. And hopefully they'll drag that out of the way pretty quickly. And some backing up towards 529 and building. Also over on the North Sam, westbound Greens Crossing, they were working an accident as well, blocking a couple of left lanes. Steamy, mid-90s for the high, 30% chance of some afternoon showers. Going to feel like 104. And rain chances going into Monday at this point. Right now, we're sitting at 80 to LaPorte. And here at the University of Houston, 79. KUHF Houston, News 88.7. Service at the University of Houston, 7 o'clock.
Good morning. President Trump says the ceasefire with Iran has ended. The renewed attacks are putting U.S. Gulf allies in the firing line once again. Ambassador Dennis Ross will provide his assessment in this hour of Morning Edition from NPR News.
The Harris County DA's office is asking from the public after a fatal ice shooting that's coming up live at 7:04.
Graham Platter's dropping his Senate-pitted name after numerous allegations of sexual misconduct. I'm Michelle Martin.
Henry Martinez, Democrats are planning to host a nominating convention. What's it mean for the party's chances to retake the Senate? Also, New York City's skyscraper has been stabilized after fears it could collapse. And Rahm Emanuel criticized the Israeli government in a speech in Tel Aviv. It's Thursday, July 9th. Today in 1981, Nintendo released the arcade game Donkey Kong, which featured an unnamed carpenter, later called Mario. News is next.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Winter Johnston. President Trump's strategy on Iran is growing less clear after another round of U.S. airstrikes and new threats of further military action. The president says the ceasefire is over, even as the White House leaves the door open to future talks. Democratic Senator Jeanne Shaheen tells NPR that the mixed signals are making it hard to know what comes next.
None of the goals that he set out in the beginning have been accomplished. We've not seen regime change. In fact, we have a more hard line in place. They still have a significant number of their ballistic missiles. They have now controlled. They still have all of their nuclear material.
Shaheen says a lasting ceasefire will require a clear U.S. strategy and sustained diplomacy. President Trump is taking Syria off a terrorism blacklist, paving the way for more sanctions relief. NPR's Michelle Kellerman reports Trump met with the country's president on the sidelines of the NATO summit this week in Turkey.
President Trump is praising Syrian leader Ahmed al-Sharaa, a former militant, for turning Syria around following a devastating civil war.
We're proud of the job he's doing. Syria's become a very stable. I mean, it's amazing in a short period of time. It's really been stabilized, and we're proud of that.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio says President Trump has notified Congress that the U.S. will take Syria off the state sponsor of terrorism list. Rubio's statement says that lifting sanctions will, quote, unlock international trade and investment and give Syria a chance to rebuild and open up a new chapter. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, the State Department.
Campaign staffers keep trying to bet on candidates despite efforts to curb insider trading. In response, prediction market Kalshi has launched a new program to fight political insider trading, but some are getting through, as NPR's Lou Garrett reports.
Kalshi now uses Federal Election Commission data to actively track campaign staffer trades. Since launching the new program, Kalshi has blocked dozens of staffers from trading on their own races. Robert Denal is the company's head of enforcement and legal counsel.
We're looking at election markets with a very close eye here. They obviously be fair, really important integrity issue.
Kalshi's election tracking program launched just days after an NPR report on campaign insider trading. Former FEC Commissioner Lee Goodman called the program a good first step.
However, it's not a panacea. It's, because it leaves still many people who are involved in campaigns who will not show up on FEC reports.
At least one campaign staffer was able to trade on a race they were involved in on Kalshi despite this new program. Lou Garrett, NPR News, Washington.
This is NPR.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Matt Harrod. Hundreds of demonstrators marched peacefully last night at the site where a man was fatally shot by ICE officers Tuesday morning. Demonstrators called for an end to ICE operations in Houston. Afterwards, dozens of them held a candlelight vigil for Lorenzo Salgado Aromo, who demonstrators like Houstonian Roberto Del Toro called this moment a reckoning.
We're so used to it happening somewhere else, in another state, another city. But now, look, it's here in our own backyard. So it's always been a problem. But now it's, we have to, take action.
The shooting comes as ICE activity continues to pick up around the country. Now, the Houston